Hello, I'm Morris Ruddick. I'd like to assume the role of something akin to a landscape artist. In so doing, I'd like to verbally create a portrait for you. A portrait first related to the landscape of the times that we live in. That's significant because it reflects the context of the need for the next aspect of this portrait, which is an understanding of the rise of a group of anointed business leaders becoming known as the Josephs and Daniels of our day. And as I describe the emerging Josephs, I'd like to share an example of one of the many Joseph projects the Lord currently has underway. So let's begin with a portrayal of the times we live in. We live in a time of accelerated change. Despite the discord and reversals taking place around the globe, these are times marching us toward one of the most awesome periods of history that the world has ever seen as God restores His order to His creation. As marketplace leaders, you are agents of change. Because of the nature of your callings, you operate outside the context of the traditional church of our day. The role and thrust of most marketplace initiatives has been progressive, to say the least. But there's a new level, another dimension being added to the scene, a dimension I sense will bring much change to even your callings and to the strategic opportunities emerging to build and to serve God's kingdom. That dimension relates to what I describe as the interlinking between secular enterprises with overriding kingdom objectives. But to better understand this interlinking of business in God's kingdom and the emerging Josephs and Daniels, let's begin with a closer view from God's perspective of the change taking place all about us. Jesus was constantly trying to shake the religious leaders of his day out of the blindness of their perception of things due to their traditional mindsets. Jesus underscored the importance of understanding the times when he said, "Whenever you see a cloud rising in the west, immediately you say, 'A shower is coming,' and so it is. And when you see the south wind blow, you say, 'There's going to be hot weather,' and there is. You hypocrites, how can you discern the face of the sky and the earth? But how is it that you do not discern the times we live in?" And I believe it's really just that simple. If we'll begin stepping out of the ruts of our traditional mindsets and listen to what the Spirit of the Lord is saying in discerning the times. The current turbulence in global affairs shouts that it is no longer business as usual. The prophet Daniel wrote that in the time of the end, many shall be purified and refined, but the wicked will do wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand, but the wise will understand. In extraordinary times, knowing what to do takes something more. We are in the prelude to the power shift of all ages. 2/3 of the world today has little to no middle class. 2/3 of the world lives on less than $2 a day and remains under oppression, affliction, and sorrow. In the last decade, Haiti has had 10 times the aid as it has had investment. Nigeria remains one of the most lawless and impoverished nations on the earth, despite being evangelized more than any other African nation. Tensions and the threat of war are imminent in Israel. In discerning the times, these are strong indications that a time of transition has taken place in the heavenlies, in the spiritual realm. It is a time of demarcation into a new era. It is a transition from a time of battles and skirmishes into a time of war. The rumblings being heard reflect the tremors caused by what is underway in the realm of the Spirit. And it is important that we are seeing the right things in the midst of these tremors. My perception as I spend time in the presence of the Lord is that this is a time marked by the Lord raising his banner. It is a rallying time for the body. It is a time in which the Lord is on the move and taking the initiative. The prophet Isaiah made the admonishment to lift up a standard on the bare hill. Raise your voice to them. Enter the doors of the nobles, for I have commanded my consecrated ones. I have even called my mighty warriors. The Lord is mustering his army for battle. The Lord is mustering his army. And the army of the Lord is about to move out on the offensive. A great mobilization is underway. There will be a much greater need for increased levels of coordination, cooperation, and connectivity within the body, as the body is melded into a greater oneness with each other and with its head than ever before. This is a time to press in more closely to the Lord than ever before. It's not a time to be riding the momentum of past successes. It is not a time to assume. It's a time to re-examine our methods. It will be a time of new wineskins. In many ways, it will reflect a time of new beginnings. It's not a time to blithely assume that what has worked in the past is going to work in the future. For those of us in Western cultures, we need to guard against our predisposition of more of the same harder. The transition into war carries with it the need for constant communication with our head. As a committed Christian and as committed Christian marketplace leaders, there is a distinct need to understand what the Lord is doing. And we need to understand that the Lord is in control, and that in the midst of all of this chaos and change, that he has a plan and a purpose. And with God's plan and purpose will be opportunities, kingdom opportunities, opportunities that will not be obvious to those of the world. Alternative systems and unusual opportunities in the midst of the change. God's people will be those with both practical and spiritual answers. This will be a time in which the impact of the body coming together will be much like the awakening of a sleeping giant. It will be a time in which the Lord anoints gifted believers in a similar fashion to the Daniels and Josephs of old, with favor and wisdom, to penetrate and operate in the midst of the fabric of societies, business, government, education, the media, to bring about his purposes for his people and the purpose of offering hope to the spiritually lost, starving, and dying of the world. It's going to be a time of unusual strategic alliances between the Lord's chosen and uniquely chosen persons of the world, much like Pharaoh in the time of Joseph, much like King Cyrus, who was responsible for returning the Jewish exiles to Jerusalem. Persons in pivotal positions who are inclined toward the Lord, his people, and God's purposes. While the scripture indicates there will be a time when men's hearts fail, that their hearts fail them for fear, this refers to the ranks of those who lack hope, not those called according to his purposes. So as we move into these times of discontinuities and change and opportunities, it is a time to rejoice. The Lord is on the move. And during these unprecedented times, he is going to use his people mightily. Just like the Josephs and Daniels of old, the Lord will have his chosen in the direct center of the discontinuities with solutions, with practical solutions that minister to the people of the world in the name of the Lord. It is written, "So I will save you, and you shall be a blessing. Do not fear, let your hands be strong." These are going to be days in which it will not be an option to embrace the heart of King David, when David said, "I am this day weak, though anointed. It will be a time in which our true strength, equipping, and protection lies in living at the door of the truth, that it is no longer us, but Jesus the Messiah who lives within us. We can expect to be used in greater ways, with greater power than we ever before thought possible. It will indeed be the time of the greatest harvest of souls into the kingdom that the world has ever seen. And as marketplace leaders, it's a time to embrace a servant's heart and to begin pressing into the Lord with a new fervency, looking for his wisdom and strategies, being open to his revelation of new wineskins, giving a fresh focus to the issues that make a difference, with the aim to operate in higher levels of effectiveness than ever before. This is Morris Ruddick, and our next session will be taking a closer look at the Joseph calling.